Well, a new survey has found Australian workers are working 1 day a week for free due to unpaid overtime. Unions New South Wales surveyed 15,000 workers across multiple industries and found that the vast majority of workers are working unpaid overtime each week as part of their job. The average worker is doing 9 hours of unpaid work in a week, and that adds up to around 11 weeks a year of unpaid labour, with a financial value of around $21,000 a year. 70% of respondents reported working overtime on weekends, with almost half saying they worked on more than 2 weekends every month. Meanwhile, the majority of people surveyed felt that refusing unpaid overtime would limit their career growth. Almost 80% agreed that their unpaid overtime had a negative impact on their life outside of work. Well, Mark Morey is the Secretary of Unions New South Wales, and he joins me now in the studio. Good morning, Mark. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much.
So does this mean that we've lost the 38-hour working week?
Well, it confirms that we've definitely lost the 38-hour work week. But what it also confirms is a culture in Australia where businesses are being run on the goodwill of Australian workers. And as you said, 9 hours a week, extra work to make these businesses go, make the economy competitive, and people aren't getting paid for that time.
And when you look at what it's costing those people in a cost of living crunch as well, it really adds up. What is it, something like $21,000 a year to someone on an income just shy of $100,000?
Just $21,000 extra a year we anticipate. What we're seeing is that people who are afraid of losing their job, they're afraid to speak out in a cost of living crisis, afraid if they've got a mortgage or a home loan that they're trying to hang on to, they don't want to be speaking out in their workplace. There's a culture in workplaces where you're part of the team. No one wants to be seen to be not part of the team, so people are very afraid to speak out.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about this. There's 5,000 employees across multiple industries. Are there some sectors where people are working more unpaid overtime?
One of the sectors that really stood out was teaching, where it's no longer a 9 to 3 job. We had teachers working till 9, 10 o'clock at night, every night marking. And certainly in other sectors, retail, there's a significant number of people who are putting in extra hours. There's been a number of cases where people are required to come in early, finish late and not be paid for that. And they're assumed to be they're responsible to do that.
And what about ages? Are you finding that younger workers are feeling as though they need to do a little bit more than, say, more established workers in an industry?
Certainly young people who want to get ahead in their career are putting in the extra hours. A number of young people said to us to meet sales targets, they couldn't do it in a 38-hour week. They literally had to work extra hours to get there. But what we also found is by the time you get to around about 50 plus, you're saying to yourself, I've had enough of this, I've had enough of my family complaining, I've had enough of missing family events, I'm not doing this anymore.
What about for those workers who say aren't on the award wage or the minimum wage, who are paid, really well, 6-figure salaries, say? Do they have an argument here to not work these unpaid hours?
Well, what we're saying is anyone who's paid under $167,000 a year shouldn't be having to work unpaid overtime. Over that, we understand there's other benefits for high-paid flyers. People are paid very high. But I think if you'd say to the average person in the street, $150,000 is at a high rate of pay, most people would say, no, it's not. And most families are living on that amount of money at the moment.
Now, the Fair Work Act finds that employees can be required to work more than a 38-hour week for no pay if the, and I'll quote, additional hours are reasonable. Who deems what is reasonable?
Well, the employer in this instance, and there are a number of cases around what is reasonable, but what we've seen over the last 20 years is an increase in what the hours, and now we believe it's got to a point where the hours that employers are asking employees to work is no longer reasonable, and 9 hours a week extra work I don't think is reasonable anymore. Helping to shut up at the end of the day, helping with an event, doing a little bit extra here and there, everyone's happy to do that, and that's the goodwill the workforce provides to our economy. But asking people to work 9 hours extra a week, 58 days a year, that's just getting out of control.
So what is the union calling for here to protect workers?
So we want all unpaid overtime to be banned for anyone earning less than $167,000 on an award. And even in the interim, we need to be having a discussion about, is it worth giving people an extra week's annual leave to compensate them for the work they're doing? The productivity that employers are getting out of this is so massive, we need to actually start seeing something coming back to employees.
Consumers are doing it tough, no doubt, but so are businesses. And we saw the Fair Work Commission with that wage increase just last week of 3.75% for minimum and award wages. Is there any wiggle room in their budgets to be shelling out more cash for workers?
Well, I think it's a discussion about what sort of business models do we want run in this country. Is it a business model that's set up where you exploit your workforce to actually be viable? We need to have that discussion. There is flexibility in our workforce. We've seen with the hours that people are working, they are putting in for their employers, and people who really like the workplaces they're in and get good benefits will continue to do this. But there are areas where it is compulsive and it's coercive behaviour by employers to force people to do extra overtime that's unpaid, and we want to stop that.
Okay, Mark Morey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for your time.